so many other supplements already for my SIBO thing. Okay, we have quite a few people here. I'm going to get started. We're going to be talking about the stress response in our body today, and mostly focusing on the resistance reaction phase of our stress response. And I'm mostly just going to be reading. This is just from a biology textbook. So it's unbiased information. It's just how the body functions. Now, what's really cool about when you're learning about the basics like this is that you can apply that information to things that then outside, like whether what about fasting, or what about ketosis, or what about yourself. So I think the information is just really interesting, especially nowadays where it's so common. Like, people like to throw a lot of science around, like, look at this cool thing, and autophagy, and yeah, all these really cool things happen. A lot of biohacking things are based in science. However, what we don't realize is that a lot of these results are also a result of stress, of causing stress on the body, because our bodies are always fighting for homeostasis. It's like they want to be at peace, they want to stay the same, they want to stay healthy. And so when we're pushing against the homeostatic mechanisms of our body, that's when, of course, change occurs, and that can be a good thing. But sometimes I think we push it into a prolonged state of stress, and that's when we see some issues, right? Okay, so like I said, when our homeostatic mechanisms are successful, right, in encountering random stress, the internal environment remains the same, which means that our body encounters a stress, we deal with it, things go on, no physiological changes happen. So if the stress is extreme or long lasting, and I think that's the key, long lasting stress, it elicits the stress response, which happens in 3 phases. So there's a sequence of bodily changes that progress, and the first one is fight or flight. And the fight or flight response is initiated by nerve impulses from the hypothalamus to the autonomic nervous system, including the adrenals, think HPA axis. And this quickly mobilizes resources for physical activity. So think about like fight or flight. Think about like, you're going to get mauled by a bear. And so your body just kind of dumps glucose and oxygen into your bloodstream. Like, you're going to get really quick, fast burning energy. You're going to get oxygen so you can breathe deeper. Your body even like retains fluid, right? It's the renin aldosterone pathway, and it causes the kidneys to retain salt. So for water retention, in case you like bleed out, that can help you. So our body does a lot of really cool things, like literally the fight or flight. I mean, I know we might be like, oh, we're just at CrossFit, or my boss is stressing me out. But what your body is reading is like, we're going to get attacked. But that's short-lived, right? So you get over that, that's when your adrenaline's pumping, right? And then we go into the resistance reaction. And this phase is really cool because we feel really good. It's initiated in a large part by the hypothalamic releasing hormone. So there's several hormones involved here. It's a longer lasting response. The hormones involved are the corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH, growth hormone releasing hormone, GHRH, and the thyrotropin releasing hormone, TRH. And so in a nutshell, the CRH gets the adrenals to secrete more cortisol via the pituitary. And then that cortisol gets the liver to release glucose, and it breaks it down, and it breaks down triglycerides to fatty acids, and it catabolizes proteins into amino acids. And then the body uses the resulting fuel, right? All the glucose and the fatty acids and the amino acids to produce ATP, which is what our body uses, like it's energy in our body. Or it uses that to repair damaged cells. Because think about it, our body thinks, wow, we just got attacked. We're recovering from the fight or flight response. So we either need to repair damaged cells because we got hurt, or we need energy because we just used up a lot of like that fast, quick burning energy. So a lot of this happens also when you're in fasting or when you're in ketosis. And it's also like why we feel so good. There is that like stressful component to being in nutritional ketosis. It's like a fine balance, right? It does teeter in that state because a lot of times like when you're burning fat for fuel, it's efficient, but it's efficient because we're kind of tapping into our body's survival mechanisms. Okay, so to continue with this, so the body uses all that, the glucose, the fatty acids, the amino acids to produce ATP and repair damaged cells. And then the cortisol also reduces inflammation. So we're feeling really good, right? We got energy, we're reducing, we don't have inflammation. So then the growth hormone releasing hormone gets the pituitary to release actual human growth hormone, which is acting like an insulin-like growth factors, and it further breaks down triglycerides and glycogen. And then the third hormone release is the TSH, right, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone. And that promotes secretion of thyroid hormones, which increases the use of glucose for ATP, for energy. So think about, like, that's a lot of cool stuff that's happening. Those are things that we want to happen. We're like, the metabolism's going, we're using energy, we're repairing. So the human growth hormone and the thyroid stimulating hormone supply additional ATP for metabolically active cells. Like, and I think that a lot of us, when we are doing those things that we think we're supposed to be doing, we're hitting the gym every day, we're like fasting 18, 20 hours, where those macros are tight, we're not hungry, we don't need food. What's food? We don't need to eat. We feel awesome and the weight's coming off really fast, and like that honeymoon phase, which we almost fall into patterns of over restriction, but our body is doing so well. It's because we're in this resistance reaction. And I think that there's some benefits to tapping into this, because obviously, like, it's like a biohack, but I feel that this phase is meant to see us through a stressful episode. I think staying here too long backfires. And it does, and I'm going to tell you, so occasionally when the resistance stage fails, right? And I think that because in a normal mechanism, like a normal stress response that is short-lived, we get through the resistance phase and then our body normalizes again. Everything is fine. But I think that a lot of us today in modern day life, and also just from being kind of brainwashed into thinking that restriction is always the answer to weight loss and finishing and our goals, we stay in this resistance reaction phase way too long. So we're instead of like biohacking, like, hey, getting our body into a stress response to ensue change, yeah, that's fine. Like, I get it. That's kind of cool. You're using science to your advantage, but our mistake is that we stay there too long. We push it too far. And then we hit the third phase of the stress response, which is, no surprise here, exhaustion. So exhaustion ensues, which means all the resources become depleted. The body cannot sustain the resistance stage forever. And this is when you start seeing a lot of side effects to the over restriction, to when you're in the resistance phase too long. And I think this comes with like hormone imbalance, and it's gonna make your gut Swiss cheese, because really quick way to get leaky gut is to be super stressful. So prolonged exposure to high levels of cortisol and other hormones involved in the resistance reaction causes wasting of muscles, suppression of the immune system, ulceration of the gastrointestinal tract, failure of pancreatic beta cells, and in addition, pathological changes may occur because resistance reaction persists after the stressor has been removed. So stress is a killer. Duh. But so like I said, when I'm reading this and I'm seeing like this whole little paragraph talking about the resistance reaction, I'm like, oh, these are all things that I see that people are like, ooh, these are these cool little sciencey things that are happening in my body when I'm fasting extra long, or I'm ketoing extra hard, or, and I get it. There are cool things that happen, but they shouldn't be happening all the time. They're meant to happen for a short period of time, and then you're supposed to exit the stressful phase so your body can then continue normal function. So, other things that happen. Stress-related disorders include gastritis, ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, hypertension, asthma, rheumatoid arthritis, migraine headaches, anxiety, and depression. People under stress are also at a greater risk of developing chronic disease and dying prematurely. Ugh, scary. So I think the way to ease out of that, right? I think a lot of times the honeymoon phase of ketoing really hard can be that resistance reaction. But then I think a way to sustain a healthy keto lifestyle without exhausting your system, these are my tips. 1, don't over restrict your calories. Like really truly make sure you are eating enough food. 2, don't go too crazy on the fasting. Intermittent fasting is really beneficial, but if you have to be really honest with yourself. Are you stressed out? You probably are. Why? Because you're a human being in the modern day world. You have kids, deadlines, traffic, emails, your phone, finances, your marriage, your mom is driving you crazy. 1,000,001 reasons we're overstressed. Also, food security. That's another thing. Like, and Ali was talking about this the other day, and it's so true. It's like your body, like fasting is like a hack in the sense that it does get you in this resistance phase, and there are a lot of benefits, and you get the autophagy. But at the same time, if your body has food insecurity and you're not feeling so good, maybe it's not the best idea. Like you can maybe fast, but it like that's usually better for people who have a lot of weight to lose because your body has lots of stored fat and it doesn't have to go digging around for it. But if you're someone who's probably got like another, like if you're trying to lose 5 or 10 pounds, I would say I wouldn't recommend it. Another thing is to address the emotional side of all of this. Like we often over stress about our food choices. We're stressing out about our macros. We're stressing about food that our trigger foods. We're stressing out about having to go to the office party and what am I going to eat? Our own diets become this huge stressor in our lives, right? And stress can be a stressor, may be almost any disturbance, heat or cold, environmental poisons, toxins given off by bacteria, heavy bleeding from a wound or surgery, strong emotional reactions. Stressors may be pleasant or unpleasant, and they vary among people, even within the same person at different times. And I think we don't give ourselves enough credit. We don't give ourselves enough grace. Like, yes, a stressor can be a good thing. It can be that really awesome workout that you've left feeling like a badass. It's also stress on your body. I'm guilty of this. I find a lot of joy in my work, but my work can be stressful. I find a lot of joy in going to the gym. Like the gym is my de-stressing, but it's not really, because while it might emotionally de-stress me, it's a physical stressor on my body. Which is circling back to why I'm going to start dabbling with like adaptogens, which like CBD oil or mushrooms, or just taking compounds, natural compounds, which help my body deal with stress better. Because a lot of things that, like intermittent fasting, I do 16-18. I do intermittent fast myself. However, I don't do prolonged fast. I definitely eat enough in a 24-hour period. Like that's a big deal. Within a 24-hour period, like I'm getting enough food. So in my eating window, I'm eating upwards of 2,000 calories. Also, I don't always dry fast. I often fat fast, which means that I have my coffee that has a little bit of ghee in it or a little bit of almond milk or something with a few calories. So my body doesn't have that food insecurity. And I know that I've still done things in the past, like overworked and overtrained to cause my body to have stress. And that prolonged stress, that prolonged resistance reaction, where it exhausted the resources because the prolonged exposure to high levels of cortisol and other hormones in my body caused thyroid imbalance. It caused my T3 to become to low T3, and that stress in my gut also caused a dysbiosis. And also, like when you're eating, when you're stressed, you get low stomach acid production, which then of course you get more bacteria and pathogens coming into your body, which then causes internal stress. So really it's all related. And I think that people say it, like everyone talks about stress, like it's such a buzzword. It's the epidemic. It's such an important factor, and we downplay it constantly. We will track our food, our sleep, our workouts. We wear those freaking little apps of machines. Our watches tell us how much we're walking, how much we're sleeping. But at the end of the day, it's all this input. We're so extremely overstimulated and so overstressed. All of those things, environmental factors, what you're cleaning your house with, like the pollutants in the air. And then on top of all of that, we want to biohack with our diet, with all these other things. And we don't realize that the results that we're getting are also a result of being in this resistance reaction. It's a stress reaction in your body. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because I was guilty of it myself, being in that resistance reaction phase and thinking, this is awesome. It's that buzz, it's those quick results, it's that like honeymoon phase, but you have to work your way to long-term results without getting to the last phase of the stress response, which is exhaustion. You don't want to reach that point. That's when you're completely depleted. That's when you have adrenal fatigue. That's when your hormones are messed up. Like that's when people say, oh, like a lot of these things that people talk about and you hear like keto's bad for your thyroid or keto's bad for your hormones. It's not inherently, it's not keto's fault. It's not fasting's fault. It's the fact that we're overall overstressed. Or you already have a system that's under duress, and then you, on top of it, implement these dietary changes that you're right, that they do work in kind of off stress. And there can be, if your body's supported properly, with overall enough nutrition, nutrient density, overall enough calories, overall enough rest, then yes, there's a lot of benefits. But it's not talked about enough. The small margin, there's a margin for error there, and I think that is very common, but people don't see it because they're in the resistance phase of their stress response, the resistance reaction phase, and so they're like honeymooning, like, what do you mean? I feel awesome. So it's just something to keep in mind. I'm gonna download this and put this on my YouTube video, so you can definitely rewatch it, and I will end up writing a blog post about this. This information will also be in my next book. I really want to talk about, blood sugar regulation, the stress response, and then of course all the things we can do to support our body in a healthy way. And that goes back to, omega 3, omega 6, like essential fatty acid balance, and all the micronutrients which we need for proper, hormone cofactors and all those things. There's just things that really like give the body what it needs so it really truly thrives. Because having symptoms like flatline hormones or completely imbalanced hormones, or when your hair is falling out or your skin is rashing, or you're waking up in the middle of the night because you don't need sleep. Like that's not good. We do need sleep. When those feelings, those things that sometimes we're like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's your body. Your body's talking to you. So we just need to start learning to listen and not downplay the stress factor of all the things that we do to our body that can cause stress. And while there's a lot of cool sciencey things that happen during this resistance reaction phase, and you can think, well, I want those things to happen because that means I'm gonna lose weight and feel good and all, the reduction in inflammation. Yeah, cortisol does some really cool things for a short amount of time. We don't want that cortisol pumping long term. It's going to be detrimental to your overall health. So it is a marathon, people, not a race. Remember that. I'm going to sign off because my kid is home from school today and I got to take him to the park. So we'll talk soon. Again, I'm going to download this and put it on my YouTube channel so you can rewatch it. Talked about the 3 stress responses: fight or flight, the slower resistance reaction phase, which is what we were talking about, and then of course lastly exhaustion. Hope you guys have a really good day. Happy Monday. Signing out.